Hey everyone, ready to dive into the world of influencer marketing?
I'm ready.
Today we're going way beyond those likes and getting into the nitty-gritty. Does it actually work?
That's the big question, isn't it?
We're breaking down a master's thesis called ROI in the Age of Digital Persuasion.
Interesting title.
It digs into how to measure the success of these influencer marketing strategies.
And it's not just some theory in a vacuum. This stuff is everywhere right now.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
Major corporations have actually doubled their budgets for influencer marketing in just the last few years.
That's why
Clearly, they're seeing some value there.
there's got to be something there.
What I find fascinating is that influencer marketing isn't just some passing trend.
It feels like it's been around forever.
It has in a way,
Yeah.
but it's really become a major force in how consumers actually make decisions.
Yeah.
And this thesis, I think, takes a really smart approach by using a bunch of different methods to investigate this.
So like a real deep dive.
Exactly.
It wasn't just theorizing. The researcher looked at existing research, did surveys to see what real people are thinking, interviewed experts, and even did a case study on Tarte Cosmetics, the makeup brand.
That's a good one to study. I feel like they're always doing influencer stuff.
They are. All that to try to answer the question,
Yeah.
do these campaigns actually work?
Do they really boost engagement?
Do they build that loyalty to the brand?
Yeah.
And to figure out how to even measure that effectiveness, the thesis looks at some key theories.
Okay. Like what?
One is the elaboration likelihood model, or ELM,
ELM. Okay.
which might sound kind of intimidating,
Yeah, a little bit.
but it's actually pretty straightforward when you break it down.
How so?
It's all about how we get persuaded, you know?
I'm always fascinated by that. How do they get us?
Right. Sometimes we make decisions based on deep thought and analysis.
Okay. So really weighing the pros and cons.
Exactly. That's called the central route.
Makes sense.
But then other times, we just go with our gut, right? We're influenced by emotion, maybe how something looks or who's telling us.
Oh, yeah. That's me at 2 a.m. online shopping.
Totally. And that's the peripheral route.
I see.
And the cool thing is that influencer marketing can use both of these paths.
Oh, interesting. How?
Think about it. You've got this charismatic person you like.
Okay.
They're showing you a product they seem to genuinely love.
Right?
That taps into those emotions, makes you more likely to buy.
It's true. I've definitely been influenced that way.
But they can also give you those details, like features and benefits.
So they're hitting both those routes.
Exactly. Appealing to logic and emotion.
Smart.
On a more, numbers side, there's marketing mix modeling, or MMM.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This helps connect those likes and comments to, actual dollars and cents.
Oh, that's interesting because I think people are always wondering about that.
I know, me too.
How do you actually track that?
MMM uses these statistical models to figure out the impact of all the different marketing activities,
Okay.
including influencer campaigns.
Right.
So brands can see which campaigns are really driving revenue.
So it's not just about the buzz. It's about the bottom line.
It shows how those likes and shares, seemingly superficial, actually translate into real results.
Fascinating.
We also can't forget about user-generated content, or UGC.
Oh, yeah. User-generated content. What is that again?
It's basically any content that's made by, users, not the brand itself.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about those unboxing videos on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Love those.
Or when a friend posts a picture using a product they love.
Okay, I get it.
It's relatable because it feels real, not like a polished ad.
And that makes a difference. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
We tend to trust other people more than we trust advertising.
Yeah, totally.
And influencers are amazing at creating this kind of content that feels organic and genuine.
And I feel like that's a big reason why influencer marketing has grown so much lately.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
It's gone way beyond just celebrity endorsements.
Oh, yeah. It's a whole different world now.
We have this whole ecosystem of influencers now, especially on platforms like Instagram and TikTok.
Right, and each with their own niche and their own following.
So now the big question is, how do we actually know if an influencer marketing campaign is working?
How do we measure success?
This is where things get really interesting.
I'm intrigued.
We need to look beyond just sales. We need to think about a whole bunch of metrics that actually show us what's happening.
So it's more nuanced than just, did it sell?
Way more. This is where those key performance indicators, or KPIs, come in.
KPIs, I've heard of those.
So like guideposts. They tell us if we're going in the right direction.
So not just vanity metrics, like how many followers someone has.
No, we need to look deeper. Look at metrics that show real engagement and real impact.
Okay, I like that.
We want to know if a campaign is increasing awareness of the brand, driving traffic to their website, and then, yeah, ultimately leading to those conversions and loyalty.
So let's break down those different ways to measure ROI, because I think this is where people can get some really useful takeaways.
Absolutely.
Each metric tells a different part of the story.
Right.
And when we put them all together, we get like a full picture of how that influencer marketing is actually performing.
Perfect.
First up, brand awareness. This is about getting that brand name in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah, making sure they recognize it and what it stands for.
Exactly.
Think about reach, impressions, those mentions online.
Basically making your brand visible, making it memorable.
And the more people see it, the more familiar they become with it.
Which can lead to trust, and then hopefully them checking out your products or services.
Then we've got engagement. This is where those likes and comments and shares come into play.
Oh, so those do matter.
They do, but it's not just about the numbers. It's about making sure that engagement is meaningful.
So like not just a bunch of bots liking something.
Exactly. We want to see people actually interacting with the content.
Okay, like what?
Asking questions, sharing their own experiences, having real conversations.
I see.
A single comment that shows some thought is worth way more than 100 mindless likes.
Makes sense. It's about quality over quantity.
Exactly. We want to see that people are genuinely interested, connecting with that brand on a deeper level.
Okay, what else?
Another big one is traffic generation.
Traffic, okay.
Are people clicking through to your website from those influencer posts?
Makes sense. You want them to take action?
Are they staying on your website once they get there?
You want to make sure they're not just bouncing right off.
Exactly. This tells us if the influencer is actually driving valuable traffic.
Traffic that could lead to sales.
Right. It's all about seeing those actions that show real interest, real intent.
That makes sense.
And of course, we can't forget about the big one, sales and revenue.
That's the bottom line for a lot of businesses.
Oh, yeah. But it's important to remember that sales aren't always the most important metric,
Oh, interesting. When would that be?
especially in the early stages of a campaign. Sometimes building awareness and engagement is more important than a quick sale.
So playing the long game.
Exactly. It's about taking that long-term view,
I like that.
focusing on building those relationships
Yeah.
that'll lead to repeat business, brand loyalty.
Okay, so it's not just a one-time transaction.
Exactly. Which brings us to another crucial metric, retention rate. Are those customers coming back for more?
So like, are they one-hit wonders or are they sticking around?
Exactly. Retention is key for showing customer satisfaction and that loyalty to the brand.
Makes sense.
If influencers are attracting customers who stick around, become repeat buyers, that's huge.
So it's a sign that they're not just driving a one-time purchase.
Right. They're actually building a loyal customer base for that brand.
That's super valuable.
It is. Now, to see how these metrics work in the real world, the thesis takes a look at a case study that caused a lot of buzz.
What's that?
Tarte Cosmetics and their, shall we say, infamous Bora Bora trip.
Oh, yeah. I remember hearing about that. What was the deal with that again?
So Tarte flew a bunch of influencers out to this luxury island, Bora Bora,
Okay, sounds nice.
showered them with gifts and these amazing experiences.
Wow.
It definitely got people talking, but also sparked a ton of controversy.
Oh, juicy.
This case study really shows how influencer marketing can be super effective, but also super risky.
That double-edged sword, huh?
Exactly. It highlights both the amazing potential and the potential pitfalls.
So let's break it down. What happened?
On one hand, Tarte saw huge increases in website traffic and mentions on social media.
Okay, so they got the buzz.
They were everywhere. But then they were accused of not being authentic and lacking diversity in the influencers they chose.
So it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
It raises a big question. How do you balance these big flashy campaigns with actually being genuine and connecting with your audience in a real way?
That's a tough one, especially when you're trying to represent different voices, too.
It's a tightrope walk for sure. And it's something brands need to be really aware of as influencer marketing keeps evolving.
It's not as easy as it looks, huh?
Definitely not. The Tarte case study really brings together all these key ideas we've been talking about.
Like what?
Like choosing the right influencers, measuring the right things, and staying true to your brand's values.
It's a good reminder that influencer marketing isn't one size fits all. You can't just copy and paste.
Exactly. Every campaign has to be carefully planned out, executed well, and you need to understand the opportunities and the risks.
So now I'm curious, what about the future of influencer marketing? This field is constantly changing, right?
Oh, absolutely. The thesis actually includes some really cool interviews with people deep in this world,
Oh, cool. Like who?
from marketing strategists to big-name influencers, and even those with smaller but very dedicated followings.
It's always fascinating to hear those different perspectives.
It is. So are you ready to hear what these experts have to say about where influencer marketing is headed?
Absolutely. Let's dive in. Yeah, let's hear it.
So these interviews give us a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah,
We get to hear from the people who are actually shaping influencer marketing.
I like that.
One of the people they talked to was Nanette Camarena. She's a marketing and communications strategist.
Okay, so she's seen it all.
She had some really great insights about how brands are approaching these campaigns these days.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's she seeing out there?
Well, she really emphasized that brands are getting a lot more savvy in how they measure success.
Makes sense. You can't just rely on those old metrics anymore.
Definitely not. It's not just about chasing those immediate sales numbers.
Right. We were just talking about that, how important it is to look beyond just those vanity metrics.
It's exactly. Nanette pointed out that brands are now looking at a mix of short-term and long-term indicators.
Okay, so they want to see those quick wins, but they're also thinking about the big picture.
Exactly. They want those immediate sales, of course.
Right.
But they're also focused on building something that lasts.
So things like awareness, positive conversations, and a real community around the brand.
You got it. They want to see people talking about the brand in a good way, engaging with the content on a deeper level, and coming back for more.
It's like they're building a relationship, not just trying to make a quick buck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did she mention any specific ways that brands are measuring this long-term impact?
Yeah, she talked about something called sentiment analysis.
Sentiment analysis, okay.
It's a way to figure out the overall tone and emotion behind the online conversations about a brand.
So, like, are people generally feeling positive or negative?
Exactly. Are they recommending the brand to others? Are they saying good things?
That's so interesting. It's like taking the pulse of the online conversation.
Right, to see how people really feel about the brand.
And that's got to be valuable information for brands, especially in the long run.
Absolutely. Now, another interview that really stood out was with Nashla Bogart.
Okay. And who is she?
She's a Dominican actress with a huge following on Instagram.
Wow. So she knows a thing or two about influencer marketing.
She does. And she talked about the importance of authenticity from the influencer's perspective.
I bet she had some good insights on that. We all know those influencer brand partnerships can sometimes feel forced.
Oh, yeah, totally. So what did she have to say about keeping things real?
Well, she was very adamant that she only works with brands that she truly believes in.
That makes sense.
Brands that align with her values.
Okay.
She said she would never promote something she wouldn't use herself or recommend to her friends and family.
I mean, that makes sense. Consumers can spot a fake from a mile away.
Exactly. And she really stressed that maintaining that trust with her followers is everything.
It's her whole business, right?
It is. She wouldn't risk that for a quick paycheck.
So how does she choose which brands to work with?
She actually has a whole process. She researches the brand, their products, their values.
To make sure it's a good fit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She also looks at how the brand interacts with its customers.
Their reputation, basically.
Right. She's very strategic and intentional about her partnerships.
Which probably explains why she's so successful.
Right. She also mentioned something else that I found really interesting.
What's that?
She actively seeks feedback from her followers.
To see what they want.
Exactly. She wants to create content that her audience actually finds valuable.
That's smart. It shows she's actually listening to them, not just talking at them.
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
Oh.
She wants to make sure that her content is serving her audience, which ultimately benefits the brands she works with.
So she's really cracked the code of building a genuine relationship with her followers.
And that's really what makes influencer marketing so powerful.
Now, the thesis also included an interview with Isabella Conde.
Okay. Who's Isabella?
She's an architecture student who's also a nano-influencer.
Nano-influencer. I haven't heard that term before.
A nano-influencer typically has a smaller following, maybe in the hundreds or thousands.
Okay. Much smaller than Nashla.
Right. But they often have a very engaged and niche audience.
So it's like a smaller but mighty kind of thing.
Exactly. And Isabella shared some great insights about the specific metrics that brands look at when they work with smaller creators like her.
So they're not just focused on follower count.
Right.
Yeah.
They're looking at engagement rate and click-through rates.
Okay, so they want to see that people are really interested in the content and that they're taking action.
Exactly, like clicking on links to visit the brand's website.
It's about quality over quantity again.
And Isabella probably has a much stronger connection with her audience because it's smaller and more tightly knit.
They probably feel like they know her personally.
Exactly. And brands are recognizing the value of these more authentic niche communities.
It's like that saying, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one.
Right. So now are you ready to dissect that Tarte Cosmetics case study in a little more detail?
Oh yeah, bring on the Bora Bora drama.
Let's do it. I'm curious to see how it all played out in terms of those ROI metrics.
Me too. Like, did they actually get results?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Tarte went all out with this trip, flew a bunch of influencers to Bora Bora,
Okay.
put them up in this fancy resort, showered them with gifts.
It was definitely a spectacle.
It was. And it seems like it worked, at least in terms of getting people talking.
So, brand awareness check?
Yeah.
What about the other metrics?
Well, we can assume they got a ton of impressions and reached potentially millions across platforms like Instagram and TikTok.
And all that buzz online probably led to some serious traffic to their website.
You would think so. The thesis doesn't have exact numbers, but it's safe to assume they saw a big spike in visits during and after the trip.
Especially since they were giving those influencers discount codes and links to share with their followers.
Oh, yeah, good point. So
Yep.
traffic generation also check. But were people actually buying anything?
That's the million-dollar question. Were they just clicking through and then bouncing? Or were they actually spending time on the site, adding things to their cart?
The thesis mentions that a lower bounce rate suggests people were actually hanging out on the website, checking out different products.
So they were engaged.
It seems like it. Which means the campaign was driving quality traffic, not just empty clicks.
That's a good sign. Now, what about actual sales?
That's a bit harder to track directly, and we don't have access to Tarte's internal data.
Right. It could be tough to isolate those numbers.
But based on what we know about influencer marketing and the strategies Tarte was using, it's pretty likely that this trip helped boost their sales.
So potentially a win for sales and revenue as well. But we can't forget about the controversy.
Oh yeah, that's a big part of the story. The Bora Bora trip sparked a lot of criticism, and this is where that whole authenticity piece comes back in.
Right. People were questioning whether this lavish trip really fit with Tarte's brand values.
And if it felt out of touch with the average consumer?
Exactly. Some people felt like it was just too much too extravagant, especially when so many people were struggling financially.
It came across as tone deaf to some, which can really hurt a brand's image.
And then there were those concerns about the lack of diversity among the influencers who were invited.
Yeah, that's a valid point. If you're going to talk about diversity and inclusion, you have to actually walk the walk.
Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly.
So the Tarte case study is really a mixed bag. It shows how powerful influencer marketing can be.
But it also shows how important it is to be careful.
Exactly. You have to plan things out, think about the execution, and stay true to your values.
It's not as simple as just throwing money at a bunch of influencers and hoping for the best.
Definitely not.
Yep.
I'm curious, what does the thesis author recommend for brands trying to navigate this?
Well, they actually give some really practical tips for brands who want to maximize their ROI and avoid those potential pitfalls.
This is where it gets really useful for our listeners. I'm ready for some actionable advice.
All right, so first and foremost, they emphasize the importance of authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about it a lot, but it's like the golden rule, right?
It's so important.
Choose influencers who really genuinely connect with your brand,
Yeah.
and encourage them to be themselves, create content that feels real and relatable.
I think that's key. You want to let those influencers' personalities shine through.
Exactly.
They bring their own unique perspective to the partnership.
Right, and don't try to micromanage everything they do.
Oh, yeah.
Give them some creative freedom.
Let them do their thing.
Because if an influencer feels like they're being forced to say things or do things that don't feel authentic,
Right.
their audience is going to see right through it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It could backfire on everybody.
Totally.
So yeah, it's all about trust and transparency. Another key recommendation is to focus on inclusivity.
Okay, making sure your campaigns represent different voices.
Exactly. So it's not just working with the same group of influencers over and over again.
Yeah, gonna mix it up.
You want to showcase a range of backgrounds, experiences, viewpoints.
And it's not just about representation either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's about making sure everyone is treated fairly.
And compensated fairly for their work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thesis also talks about the need to be economically sensitive,
Which is super important these days.
especially now when so many people are struggling.
Right. Don't launch some extravagant campaign when people can barely make ends meet.
Yeah, it just comes off as out of touch.
It does?
Like you're not paying attention to what's going on in the world.
Exactly. You got to read the room, basically.
Okay, so be authentic, be inclusive, be economically aware.
What else? The author also recommends that brands think about sustainability.
Okay, environmentally friendly practices.
Yeah, and cost-effective practices.
So making sure your influencer marketing is sustainable in the long run.
Exactly, for the planet and for your budget.
I like that. These recommendations seem really useful for brands who want to step up their game.
They are. And the thesis also touches on some cool trends that are shaping the future of influencer marketing.
Ooh, trends. I love trends. What's coming up?
Well, one of the biggest trends is the rise of micro-influencers.
We talked about those a bit earlier.
We did, but it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Brands are realizing that sometimes bigger isn't always better.
Sometimes it's better to go with those smaller, more niche creators.
Right, because they often have a much stronger connection with their followers.
And it feels more genuine when they recommend a product.
It does. As consumers get more skeptical about who they trust online, those micro-influencers can really stand out.
It's like getting a recommendation from a friend.
Exactly. Another big trend is the use of data and AI.
Oh, getting fancy.
These tools are helping brands find the right influencers,
Okay.
track performance really closely, and understand how their campaigns are impacting their bottom line.
So it's not just a guessing game anymore.
No, you can really get specific with your data.
I like that data-driven approach. Now, this next trend is super interesting to me.
What's that?
Virtual influencers. Have you heard of these?
I have. I'm so curious about them.
They're basically CGI-created characters who are becoming influencers.
It's wild. Like, they don't even exist in the real world.
I know, it's crazy. It makes you wonder about the future of influence and authenticity online.
If people are forming real connections with virtual characters, what does that mean for human interaction?
It's mind-blowing.
It is. And the thesis also mentions that we're going to see a lot more e-commerce happening right on social media.
Like those shoppable posts where you can buy something straight from an influencer's photo.
Exactly. It's all about making it as easy as possible for people to buy things.
People want things now. Now. Now.
They do. And brands are making sure they can get it.
So basically, the future of influence is all about adapting, staying authentic, and using technology to connect with people in meaningful ways.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see where things go from here.
Who knows what kind of crazy campaigns we'll be seeing in a few years.
I can't wait to find out.
Well, one thing's for sure, influencer marketing is not going anywhere.
It's definitely here to stay.
It's a powerful tool, and it can be incredibly effective when done right.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into influencer marketing ROI.
I feel like we just scratched the surface.
We did. There's so much more to explore.
But hopefully this gave our listeners a good starting point.
Yeah, and a few things to think about.
Absolutely.
If you're ever feeling lost in the world of influencer marketing, just remember, we're here to help.
We'll guide you through it.
Until next time, happy influencing.
See you next time.